till 10 o'clock, and at 10 o'clock we went out and had a glorious walk along the beach. With the air was great, the waves were huge and thunderous. We had a great morning.
I'm not the we. He was with Gilroy.
Oh, we thought it was you.
No, it's never. Well, that's okay. We have a bunch of things to do today, and it's really good. Cindy now has another person with her. It is hi, baby. Wave hi. Okay, there you go. Thank you. We have a lot. Donald Trump said in a fundraising email to his supporters that they are coming for me. Actually, the exact quote is, "They're coming for me." And then in that fundraising letter, he made clear that it's a whole bunch of district attorneys going for him. Then he made clear that the district attorneys were handpicked by and personally funded by George Soros.
Yeah.
So to really break it down, the dog whistles of anti-Semitism, they're not dog whistles. I mean, it's straight out there. And I mean, George Soros is a very controversial figure. That he owns the Jewish world is not likely. That he's funding the district attorney in New York is not likely.
He
But
gave him $1 million. What do you mean? He gave him $1 million toward his campaign. Of course, it's
okay, it's very, very clear.
U.S. attorneys don't have campaigns because they don't run; they're appointed.
well. I
There's
read
no
that.
campaign.
So I don't know what you read, but there's no way he got a campaign donation.
Of course, there was no campaign for district attorney.
And
But-
by the way, Rand Paul said that he should be put in jail for prosecuting Trump.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Remember, we are speaking respectfully, and in this place, we can say whatever the hell we want, and all as long as, we respect. The Alan Dershowitz said that Republicans who criticize George Soros shouldn't be concerned about anti-Semitism because, in the words of Professor Dershowitz, Soros, though a Holocaust survivor, and I'm quoting, is not much of a Jew. That's from Dershowitz.
Amen.
I don't know who gets, as an ordained rabbi, I guess I should have the right to be able to determine you're a Jew, you're more of a Jew, I wouldn't dream, my God. Okay. So anyhow, that's all out there. Then as long as we're talking about troubling statements, our friend Smotrich,
Who's that?
The Israeli.
who is a minister in the Israeli government and is a racist, misogynist, anti-LGBTQ, hater of Arabs, major public official in the current government. And nothing that I said is opinion. What I said, no, it's really, that's pretty much documented. In any event, the State Department finds Smotrich's comments, and I quote, irresponsible, repugnant, and disgusting.
Mhm.
What did he say?
He said that the village from which the terrorists came and killed the two
The
Israeli
two
young men, the brothers, that village should be,
wiped off the earth.
Mm.
and apparently coming from a representative of a government, that's a pretty serious thing. But we're gonna keep on going. Smotrich's visit to the United States, sponsored by Israel Bombs, because he is the finance minister of Israel, and Israel Bombs always has the finance minister speak. It's not Smotrich, it's the title. Not going to go into that. We did that before. But the only people that I'm aware of who met with Smotrich while he was in the United States was the Zionist Organization of America and the Orthodox Union. Other than that, he had a lot of time for sightseeing.
Smotrich also withdrew the statement that you
Oh, yeah,
quoted.
sorry, I didn't hear you.
Smotrich withdrew the statement that you were quoting?
Yes, oh, he
Shortly after he
withdrew
made
it
it.
later, said, just kidding.
Well, he said it meant that the army should wipe out the village.
Right, which is, a much more reasonable thing.
More like what we did in Vietnam and in Afghanistan and Iraq.
I don't want to go to Vietnam because that still brings up, Howard, when Risa and I visited Hanoi and saw the museum to Agent Orange
Mm.
to what Americans did in Vietnam. As much as I opposed it then, Howard, the impact, they actually had a group of people who were children of people exposed to Agent Orange, and they were all horribly deformed.
Yeah.
We did that.
Well, also our own troops.
Right.
And what's worse, our own troops sued and lost because the manufacturers made Agent Orange to the government specifications.
Yes, I
Dow
mean,
Chemical.
yeah, Dow
The
Chemical.
primary one was Dow Chemical, right?
Well, then Smotrich wanted to have it wiped out
In any
in
event-
Afghanistan and in Iraq.
Okay, Sukasa, thank you.
Vietnam out.
I'm not hearing you, Sue. Sue.
Unmute.
She's muted.
Okay, I was gonna say, can we stick to what's going on today? Because there's so much to talk about.
There is so much to talk about. So the question is what the American Jewish community is going to do about all this. There is so much going on. There was a comment made regarding the hundreds of thousands of Jews, Israelis, protesting in Israel against the government moves regarding the judiciary and a variety of other things. One commentator wrote, most of the protesters in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, and in smaller cities around the country had served in Tzahal, in the Israeli Defense Forces. But very few of the ministers in the current Israeli government have served in the Israel Defense Forces. When I read that, I said, ooh, that is a very, make of it what you will, a very interesting observation. Very interesting. It also, and I mentioned this last time, also interesting that in these hundreds of thousands of people who are protesting, very few Israeli Palestinians are in that group. And that's, if you will, from my perspective, an indication as to how they have been made to feel little connected to the political process. Okay, please. Yes, I see. Stacy, please.
Yeah. Maybe you can elaborate on this or provide some insight, but my understanding is the reason for the protests is that they are objecting to the fact that the judiciary would lose a lot of its influence and power because it could be overruled by the government. Is that your understanding?
That's, I don't want to say yes because it's too complicated to
Okay.
answer yes. What it's a multifaceted push. One, they want to give the Knesset the right to overturn a Supreme, well, it's actually a high court, called Supreme Court, but it's not exactly what the Supreme Court rules. And that has everything to do with Bibi coming up, may be convicted. And if he's convicted, the Knesset with his majority could overturn it. So that's one thing.
Okay.
That's actually a pretty big thing. The second thing is who gets to select the justices. And they want to give more power to the governing party in the Knesset to choose Supreme Court justices. That's a problem. It's a serious problem. Another thing is that they want to curtail any power that the Supreme Court has to look back on prior decisions and say no or yes.
Oh, wow.
So that's why it was too complicated to say.
Yeah. There's a lot of angles to it. Yeah.
Stacey, no one ever asks me to give a brief statement about anything.
It's okay. Well, we're here to learn.
Oh, no, I'm here to talk. So it was fascinating to me because I had never thought about it, that most of those Israelis, which, by the way, in comparable terms, if this were the United States, it would be something like 6 million people out protesting. Comparable. Okay. I mean, if you population size. So they're 300,000, 9 million people. I don't know how it works out, but somewhere around that size. What would happen in this country if 6-7 million people were in the streets protesting? That's what's happening in Israel. So we put that together. Okay, so Sukasa is so right. There is so much going on. A new Gallup poll, strictly of people who call themselves members of the Democrat Party. Democrats that they were surveyed by Gallup are likelier to sympathize with Palestinians than Israeli Jews. That's the first time that result has ever appeared. Asked, here was the question, in the Middle East situation, are your sympathies more with the Israelis or more with the Palestinians? Listen, 49% of Democrats surveyed sympathize more with the Palestinians. 38%, 49, 38.
Wow.
Democrats surveyed, 38% sympathize more with Israelis, 49% with Palestinians. Folks, that's a red flag.
Totally. Mhm.
Look what's going on within the Democratic Party. That's a red flag. I want to go on, and Susie, I'll get to you. An additional 13%. I love these people. Had no opinion. They're my favorite people in the whole world. Okay, they had no opinion. It was the first time since at least 2001 that more Democrats sympathized with Palestinians than with Israelis. Sympathy, and here's the close, for Israelis among Republicans remains strong. 78% Republicans surveyed sympathize more with Israelis, 11% sympathize more with Palestinians. I just want to finish, Steve. Okay, I just want to finish this thing. Among independents, 49% sympathize Israelis, 32% Palestinians. Overall, 54% sympathize of Americans. Overall, 49%, 54% Americans more with Israelis, 31% more with Palestinians. Now I'm going to take comments. I had Sukasa and I had Steve and Susie. I had Susie. Yes, okay.
Me first?
Yes, Susie, please.
Okay. When you were speaking of this statistics, it immediately came to my mind that Americans go for the underdog a lot of the time. And I think that the news, social media, etc., exploit the fact that the Israelis are in a better situation than the Palestinians. And I think they give more attention to the Israelis and consider the Palestinians the underdog. Does that have anything to do with anything?
It sure does. It sure does. You see, Steve, I'm not going to respond to each because I want you to talk.
While this is very concerning, and I agree, once again, we need to be very mindful that questions are not often asked and interpreted in the same manner. I think that people can sympathize with Palestinians for their condition, not only from Israel, from their own leaders, from their own abuse of power and wasting of money. And that's different than asking them who's responsible for the violence, who is engaged in more inappropriate activity, who are the terrorists. Just asking where are your sympathies can be interpreted so many ways that we need to be careful how we interpret those results, which again isn't to say it isn't disturbing, because it is, but a lot of polls, people draw conclusions from questions, and they're drawing it as if a different question were asked that's leading to their analysis.
Thank you, Risa. I remember when you were studying biostatistics, and there was actually a program on how to do surveys and to make surveys potentially reliable.
Yeah.
One of the big questions is what other questions were being asked around it. Was something leading into it? You have to be careful about that.
Yeah,
Not just the question itself, but what else are they asking you?
yeah. Okay, Sukasa?
Did they break it down? How do people who are Jewish feel about this in your polling? Did they not ask that question so they don't have the information? Is that, I see you shaking your head.
No, they didn't. I get news reports and I read and I assimilate. The data was they surveyed people who
Okay.
consider themselves Democrats or who vote Democrat or vote Republican. Okay, Howard.
So given that the US government is strongly deploring what the minister of the Israeli government is doing and what the government is doing and saying, and given that more Democrats and that we have a Democratic government in power in the administration, and given that more Democrats support the Palestinians than support the Jews, albeit there are a lot of pitfalls in interpreting surveys. Nevertheless, those are facts. Then I'm certainly I've always voted Democrat my entire life, except when we lived in Berkeley, I voted for the Peace and Freedom Party. But doesn't this mean that someone who's a strong supporter of Israel should now be voting Republican?
Very interesting.
Okay, I don't think there's a logical connection between your two statements.
Why?
Wait, Howard, you said
Like-
that we have a Democratic government. We don't. The Republicans control the House of
No,
Representatives.
well, I'm referring specifically to the State Department statements about
You say Democratic government, that's false.
the State Department is well.
Howard,
history
That's
of
a false
anti-Semitic.
statement. Okay,
Well, the guy who's speaking was a State Department spokesman.
it was still a false statement, and you got to be careful about that. Now,
It was false.
we do not have a Democrat government.
Well, I said that the administration is controlled by the Democratic Party. That's what I meant, at least.
Okay, that's what you meant. Fine, good. Okay, now, are you, I'm talking collectively, oh, I'm going back to being in Atlanta. Are y'all bullet voters? Do you know what I mean? One issue determines the whole vote. Are y'all bullet voters? Or is your vote dependent upon multiple factors? Did I say that neutrally? Okay. Are y'all bullet voters, or do you tend to vote on a variety of issues? Okay. I'd like to see a hand. Someone, just quick answers. Steve, a quick one.
Sure, I think I can't answer that question because from election to election, it can vary. I mean, and the one issue maybe
Okay.
is Donald Trump running. So otherwise, I would say it's multiple things.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Let's just get a multiplicity of answers. Stacy.
Multiple reasons. Yeah, I'm not a single issue voter.
Okay, I like the term bullet. It makes me feel like a member of the NRA. I'm a bullet voter. Okay, anyone else want to answer that question? Howard?
This has come up before for me, and my answer has always been that if the only issue that would matter to me was Israel, I would vote Republican. But since it's not the only issue, I vote Democrat.
Okay, so you're saying that you vote if you were multiple issues. Okay, anyone else want to come in on this? Okay, all right. Stacey, yeah.
Just wanted to follow up on what you were discussing previously. Susie made the comment about the underdog, and I agree with that. I think that there are aspects of that in the United States. It's like if you're successful, then you're often condemned, like, you're a bad person or something if you're successful. And I think what Steve had said, and I think he's absolutely right, a lot of these, the way they frame the questions, they frame them as though they're binary, like it's either A or B. But as he was saying, well, you can still have empathy for the Palestinians and still be in favor of Israel. I mean, they're not mutually exclusive. And then the last point I wanted to make, when you quoted the Gallup poll of the overall population, and I think you said, was it 49 or something percent
The exact thing again is
for Israel? And
overall 54% sympathize more with Israelis, 31% more with Palestinians.
you know what I think would be a meaningful piece of information is to see how that has changed, what the trend line has been on that. In other words, has that deteriorated over the years? I would guess, just based on what we see politically and the loud voices and the big mouths and everything, that the support for Israel probably maybe, the United States overall, my sense is maybe that has declined, sadly, but I don't know. I don't have that data, but that would be an interesting piece of information because you have it today, but what was it, a few years ago? What was it 10 years ago? And just to see what that trend is.
That's totally fair. And I do not possess that material, but I would, no, not imagine. I am certain that somewhere in the Gallup archives, all of that is timelined. And that, to do a little bit of research, I have not done that. Yes, it would be fascinating. By the way, we're dealing with difficult issues. So I want to, Cindy, this one's for you. This one is for you. The Minister of Finance, Smotrich, is in negotiations with Costco to try to bring Costco into Israel.
Great.
Okay, so, there's a piece of good news. And the reason that he's doing it as Minister of Finance is that he believes bringing Costco in will lower the food costs.
Susie's the queen of Costco, not me.
Okay, but I now know where I would buy herring if I get back to Israel or when we get back. Yeah, so that'll be good. Here is a by the way, leads nowhere. When we were in Israel, we were totally aware of the struggle between the government of Israel and the Vatican over property. This was in the newspapers. Every couple of weeks, there'd be another angry statement from a cardinal, from a minister in the Israeli government about ownership of property in Jerusalem in particular. Here comes a statistic. It stands alone. Churches, not just Catholic, churches own 1,200 acres of Jerusalem, including in the Old City, in the Holy Basin, which is where the Temple Mount is, and then going up to the Mount of Olives, the Liberty Bell Park, where we go a lot to picnic, and there's a nice little kiosk there. Part of it's owned by the church. Keren HaYesod Street, which has some of the major government buildings on it. So just as a matter of information, there is also at the edge of the Old City, right outside the Old City walls, technically in the New City, whatever, there's a major Catholic church called Notre Dame. And Notre Dame Church has been in constant battles with the Israeli government over the payment of taxes for that part of the church's activity, which involves its hotel and hospitality features. So while all of this is going on, in the background, in the noise, there is the practical as well. There's not much to say. It just, imagine that the Catholic Church alone, no, excuse me, all churches together own 1,200 of the most important acres in Israel. And some of the buildings that we look at and consider them iconic are actually on 99-year leases from various Catholic churches. The Armenian Church heavily, but others as well. My grandchildren are going to have to worry about that. I don't have time. Okay, now, next. Do you want to talk about the agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia negotiated by China? So I'm going to throw it open initially to your comments. I will then come in and add my voice to what you have to say. Anyone like to comment on Iran, Saudi Arabia, China? Anybody? I'll pour myself a drink and let you gather your thoughts. Howard? You're not on. You're not, I can't hear you.
Is it an agreement or a proposed agreement?
It is an agreement. They've signed an agreement.
Okay.
They have an agreement.
Is it good for the Jews?
No.
That's what I'm asking the Jews.
No.
I don't think it can be good for Israel. Doesn't sound like it can be good for Israel.
Some people say it could be good for
Okay,
the
Doris, why do you think that?
Well, because those are often, I think all of those are anti-Israel or anti-Zionist or anti-Jewish or whatever. So I think it will hurt Israel.
There are very negative features toward Israel in this agreement. Yes. But before I really sign in, I want to give you any other reflect. Well, how did you feel when you read that? I mean, what did it mean to you? Sukasa made a face. That's what it meant.
Oh, it's
Okay.
very upsetting, you know.
Okay, Rebecca?
It felt like a contrary move to NATO and the UN.
Okay, so now we have two injured parties potentially, US, NATO, and Israel. Any other comments? How did this happen? Do you know that it was not projected in advance by American intelligence? There was nothing out there saying the Iranians and the Saudis are having backroom conversation. Nothing was out there. And then one day, there's an agreement. US intelligence did not pick it up. At least not as they shared with Stanley. I mean, some of you may have heard, but I didn't. How did it happen? What do you think? Sukasa says American intelligence very often has problems, and the answer to that is you bet.
Yeah, I think the Chinese are trying to assume a bigger stage worldwide. And I wouldn't be surprised if they approached the parties. The other thing is, what was I going to say? Oh, it's very curious that Saudi Arabia and Iran, one's a Shiite country and one is more Sunni, and that How did that happen? You know?
Yes. Yeah. I think that was the brilliant insight of the New York Times columnists. How did that happen?
Yeah.
That's right. So the Sunni Shiite, Iranians Shiite, Saudi Arabia Sunni, they have been at each other's throats forever. And okay, but there's also a proxy war going on, and this was part of it. Where is that proxy war? Right now, where is that proxy war being fought?
Lebanon, isn't it?
Yemen.
Yemen. Okay, that's right.
Yemen. And the proxy war has led to Yemeni troops supported by Iran firing missiles into Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is backing one force, the Iranians the other. And so Saudi Arabia has not, there wasn't huge damage, but to their national pride, they were hit by missiles from a foreign country. Okay, and it becomes very difficult to react to it because the Saudis already are heavily funding one side of the war, the Iranians the other, and the Americans. There's a wonderful Yiddish phrase, Dochschleppers. How do you translate it? They got pulled into this and they don't know which way they're going. That's the American situation. So we've had a ship attacked and we've had a few other things. There is a hot war. This agreement says that both sides will pull back on their support of the fighting sides in Yemen. So Howard, you said agreement. There is agreement to pull back on that, which was a flashpoint of conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Okay, Stacy.
I have a question, Rabbi, or two questions. I thought that Saudi Arabia was starting to cooperate a little bit more with Israel. I think it might have been with the Abraham Accords because they didn't want Iran to be getting a nuclear missile, get nuclear arms. So how does that play into it? Number one, and number two, I thought that the Abraham Accords were supposed to, had put the US and Saudi Arabia and some other Arab countries in, I don't know if it was a trade agreement, I don't know the detail, but it just seemed like all of a sudden Saudi Arabia is becoming buddy-buddy with Iran when it seemed like it was moving in the other direction towards Israel.
Let's really be clear. I know I'm a bit of a hysteric every once in a while in worrying about Israel, but let's be clear. They're not becoming buddy-buddy. As was pointed out, the Sunni Shiite thing is in the DNA. I mean, that's massive. I mean, that is at their absolute core theological differences, and they really believe that the other guy should drop dead. Having said that, the agreement deals with the superficials, not a small matter. Yemen is not a small matter. And they agreed to lower the volume of their attacks on each other. Okay, that's also very important. Now I'm going to share with you a coincidence. I love coincidences. Stacy asked about the Abraham Accords. Israel wants very, very, very much to have Saudi Arabia within the Abraham Accords. Know that no matter what else we think about Bibi and Trump, Bibi and Trump brought the Abraham Accords to be. In order for a variety of Muslim Middle Eastern countries to sign on, the United States has paid bribes. Every Arab nation that signed on to the Abraham Accords has been given something that they have wanted from the United States. And we're talking in the millions of dollars, not, a street sign. Every single country received a gift from the United States. Now, Israel is in direct backroom conversations with Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. 2 weeks ago, Saudi Arabia sent a backdoor shopping list to the United States. It was a very serious shopping list. It included military equipment, recognition of various, it was not a simple shopping list. And the United States rejected it. Within a week, the accord between Saudi Arabia and Iran was inked. That is a coincidence.
Hmm.
I wasn't in the room. I can't tell you it was really a coincidence, but to my dim vision, they were right. Saudi Arabia got a refusal of the shopping list. I'm not saying the United States was right or wrong on refusing, okay? But a refusal on the shopping list, and then Saudi Arabia signed an agreement with Iran. Question, does the agreement with Iran then block Saudi Arabia from joining the Abraham Accords? Answer, it still depends on how the United States will view the shopping list. It will be negotiated. When you send a shopping list, you ask for everything, and it has to be negotiated. My bet is that over a reasonably short span of time, it will be negotiated. Actually, I hope that's true. But anyway, that's how those things work together. Stacy, you had your hand up again?
Oh, let me
No.
take it down. Sorry.
Okay, Rebecca.
I'm so confused. So I thought Saudi Arabia was a really wealthy country. Why are they giving a shopping list to the United States? And if the United States does not negotiate that shopping list, they can now go to China, right?
I think Saudi Arabia, without saying it, pretty much indicated that what you said is true. Of course they could go to China. Now, there is a difference. Some of the military hardware they want is the most sophisticated in the American arsenal. You can't go, forgive me, Cindy, to Costco to get everything, many things, not everything. So I would say a work in process rather than a final thing. The agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia regarding Yemen, in my mind, is a good thing. That could blow up literally at any time. And it's a good thing that Saudi Arabia and Iran have agreed to tone down the rhetoric. Beyond that, so far, in every time governments sign agreements, there's the visible protocol and the protocol that no one ever sees, right? So I don't know what was also signed. No one knows what was also signed. You might notice that after China pulled this off between Saudi Arabia and Iran, Xi showed up in Moscow. All of this is a coincidence. But do you see the Chinese plan working very, very well? Now, the Chinese don't give away the shop. When in Vietnam and Cambodia, and prior to that, when we were in Africa, we heard of the onerous, destructive terms that the Chinese financial gifts imposed upon these countries for the support, the roads, the bridges that the Chinese were building. They're not giving away anything. I think, if I can take an outsider's position, it's damn impressive. I think from their side, they are doing a heck of a good job. And just like that, we need to care. We need to care. I'm going to stop and move on to another topic, unless anyone here has something they would like to offer on this topic. Very important topic. Very important. Okay, Howard, I just got an invitation from Seth to come over to his house for a meal. So I just thought I'd tell you that, but I haven't responded to it yet. You should know.
You should go.
Please, that's not on the agenda.
No.
Okay, we're really looking forward to it. I had a request from Sue Casa for what NGOs should I support in Israel? And then she asked the question, and the next meeting of this class, she didn't show up. I noticed these things. So I have saved my answer for now. The question being, I want to support the Israeli battle for human rights, civil rights, religious rights, gay rights, women's rights. Okay, I want to support that. What organizations might I choose to financially support? So Stanley Davids, who is totally unbiased on all matters, would offer the following. Not any one of them is free of controversy. Because when you support a human rights organization, they may choose among the things they're fighting for, things that you don't want to fight for. Okay? And I want to say it. So, for example, New Israel Fund. It is an excellent, excellent, excellent organization. And if with, it also supports Palestinian human rights organizations. I just need to say that. But New Israel Fund, I would give 100% kosher. Chidush, Hiddush, which is the best organization in Israel fighting for marriage rights and religious pluralism. It's also run by one of my closest friends. I just thought I'd say that. I officiated the marriage of his kids, bar mitzvahs of his kids. Doesn't have anything to do with the fact, I'm trying to be honest here, that Chidush is superb. And anytime you read the Israeli press, when it comes to reading internal surveys of what's going on, Chidush is number one quoted everywhere. So they're good. Next, Rabbis for Human Rights. Very left wing, very involved, most especially with Palestinian rights on the West Bank. If Palestinian rights on the West Bank are a major concern of yours, the place to go, Rabbis for Human Rights. Okay? And yes, one of my very close friends runs that one, but we don't talk about the West Bank that much. Okay, it's good. It's very good. Okay. Rabbis for Human Rights are really good. IMPJ, the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, which is the equivalent of the URJ in North America. The IMPJ is to Israel as the URJ is to North America. So if you want to support reform and progressive Judaism in their fights for rabbi recognition, marriage rights, building of buildings, funding for preschools, everything, IMPJ, 100% kosher. Very important. I, in fact, am involved in actively fundraising to support the IMPJ. Just like that. Last one I'm going to mention is the Association for Civil Rights in Israel. ACRI, very familiar acronym. ACRI, the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, which is considered to be, by all the checking I did for Sukasa, Israel's leading civil rights association. I don't have any friends running it, but it doesn't. Okay, so ACRI. So that's.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, I think everyone would enjoy that, and some people may respond to that. And remember, it's my evaluation, but I tried to do more than my friends. I really tried to look, and New Israel Funds, Chidush, IMPJ, Rabbis for Human Rights, and ACRI. Pick your
Rabbi, is ACRI like ACLU and they equally look out for the rights of the Palestinians and other minority groups?
Indeed. Yes, I mean, ACRI is, again, huge, effective across the board, but it doesn't get involved in the West Bank. It doesn't get involved in some of the battles that are important to us, funding for the reform movement. You know, every organization, you have to go to their website, see what they do. All right, and since we were warned right at the beginning by Sukasa, there's so much to talk about. I am going to end with what will be the beginning. By the way, I need to say, the day is March 22nd. The next session for this class would be, I think, April 5th. I didn't write it down.
Canceled for Pesach.
As canceled for the fact that that night is first Seder. Okay? I was asked, could we move it to the week before, the week after? Steve asked, others asked. The answer really is no. It's a complicated calendar. We alternate with Susan Nanis's class. We can't do that. So we'll have to skip one and then go forward with our regular. My last issue, Hebrew College, which is a rabbinical seminary located in Boston, which is not associated with any denomination, is more focused on text than the Hebrew Union College is in its curriculum. Hebrew College, I've met some of their students, got some good people and good professors. Hebrew College has just started accepting applicants to their rabbinic school who are in relationships with non-Jews. In my world, which, you may not yet be there, but I'm trying to bring you in my world, that's a red flag in front of a bull. That is a serious challenge. The Hebrew Union College today will not accept as a rabbinic student anyone who is engaged to or married to, hear that, anyone who is engaged to or married to a non-Jew. Hebrew College has just indicated that it will accept rabbinic candidates in any form, engaged, married to a non-Jew. This is really complicated. The Reconstructionists already hold this position. The Orthodox, not so much. You got it? Not so much, or no. Conservative rabbis are beginning to show up at mixed marriages. The Hebrew Union College in 2024 will issue a new set of policies, which will include the question of accepting for rabbinic students those who are in full relationships, marriage, whatever, with non-Jews. All right, we are at, let me just take, if you could do, Stacy, 1 minute, and then we're being closed down.
Very quick question, Rabbi. Do you think that decision is driven by finances? It's a financial decision?
That is part of what we will discuss next time around, undoubtedly.
Okay.
Steve.
That's right. But once you're ordained, you can't be defrocked if you then marry someone who isn't Jewish.
Not only that, once you are in the Hebrew Union College and you then marry, you can't be expelled. So let me just say, Steve.
What happened to my?
Let me pull back on that. The college doesn't want to ordain someone in such a relationship. And my prediction, pull back on what I just said, doesn't want to ordain. And folks, I'm predicting change in policy. Okay, we're going to stop there.
I thought we were going to talk about the military action and boycotting, getting involved in politics.
Well, we'll do it between 12 and 1. Steve, it is fraught. It is a tough issue to have IDF reservists say they won't serve, mixes military into politics, even if they're doing things I agree with. Chag Pesach Sameach Kasher. Have a wonderful Passover. Ooh! And yeah, we have a few more things to discuss. Love you all. Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Rabbi.
Rebecca, I love meeting your mother.